Joining us now, Lisa Lair, New York Times National Correspondent and author of The Fall of Roe. Also with us, Lauren Leader, co-founder and CEO of All In Together. Ladies, thank you so much for coming on in here. So, Lisa, 14 states now have near total abortion bans. Help put into perspective where we are right now and how pivotal this election could be on this issue.
Well, look, you have a stark difference in these candidates. You have President Joe Biden, who has promised to do what he can to restore and fight for abortion rights. And you have former President Trump, who says it should be left to the states. What that effectively means is these 14 states that have near total bans, and any other states that want to move in that direction, a future Trump administration not only won't interfere with that, there are ways that a Trump administration could, through executive action, go further to ban or restrict abortion rights and access in other states and certainly nationwide. Now, on the other side, President Biden, there's no magic wand here. There's nothing that a second-term Biden administration can do and magically bring back abortion rights. But, you know, he's in a different place on this issue than Trump is. There's no question.
Well, voters could certainly send a message to whoever ends up winning the presidency. Let's look at the recent polling from Kaiser Family Foundation. 1 in 10 women say abortion is the most important issue driving their vote this year. That increases to 1 in 5 among women ages 18 to 29. Lauren, what kind of impact could that voting bloc have in this election?
Well, and the other part of the Kaiser Family Foundation report, which I think is really terrifically done, is that they look at the difference between states that have abortion measures on the ballot and how motivating it is for women in those states to turn out. And what they saw is that it is a huge galvanizer. What does that mean for President Biden? Well, we're looking at, obviously, abortion measures on the ballot in Arizona, in Florida, in other, even in now in North Dakota. So it could potentially change the status quo in terms of how those elections turn out. But I think Lisa makes really important points, which is, I think many of us have been saying, it is now critical that not only voters understand that Trump was responsible, that there is more that could be lost in a second Trump term, but also we need to hear more, I think, from the administration on what their solutions really will be, how they will defend abortion rights. And I think this case in Idaho that was before the Supreme Court is a great example. The Biden administration suing the state of Idaho for refusing to care for women who were having organ failure, who were on the brink of death because they were turned away from care. And those are the kinds of cases that I think have really become top of mind for a wide swath of American women, whether or not they ever thought of themselves as pro-life or pro-choice. Most American women now agree no one should be turned away from emergency care. No woman should have to make a choice between losing organs, losing their life, and getting the health care that they're asking for in an emergency room.
And that Idaho case and decision expected sometime this week, since it is the last week of the term, or at least is expected to be. Let's listen to more of what we heard from the vice president in her interview with our own Mika Brzezinski.
Think about what these extremists are saying to a survivor of a crime of violence to their body, a survivor of a crime that is a violation of their body, and to say to that survivor, and you have no right or authority to make a decision about what happens to your body. That's immoral.
Lisa, your thoughts on that?
Look, I think we've seen this pivot in how this issue is talked about. Before Roe fell, this was an issue that really motivated the anti-abortion forces much more than those who supported abortion rights. And we've seen this really radical reckoning in the country since Roe fell, where there's this greater understanding of what this issue is. Like, yes, it is about when a woman and if a woman can legally terminate a pregnancy, but it's also about all this broader swath of issues around her health. It's about what that means for, you know, pregnancy can be a dangerous business, what that means for her pregnancy or for miscarriage care.
A lot of people have complications.
A lot of people have complications, and that's what the vice president was talking about. And it's also about what this means emotionally and symbolically to women in America in terms of how they view their place in this great American experiment. And I think that's some of what we've seen switch about this, and that's some of what the Biden administration is trying to tap into as they try to energize, as you were pointing out, this new coalition of abortion rights voters in America.
Let's listen to part of a new campaign ad, which actually takes it beyond abortion specifically and looks at other aspects of women's health care and reproductive care. Watch.
Roe is just the beginning. They're going to try to ban the right to choose nationwide. They're coming for IVF and birth control next. We're up against extremism. Send me back to the White House and I'll fight like hell to restore Roe v. Wade and protect American freedom.
Lauren, what do you make of the strategy to focus on IVF and contraception?
Well, those are very real issues, and I think Americans need to take them seriously. And we saw, and Lisa just wrote about this in her amazing book, like we saw in the lead up to the Dobbs decision that it was very hard for people to imagine a world without Dobbs. And I think part of what has been this massive sea change in the country that has shifted the political sands under Republicans' feet, which, anti-abortion stances were reliable positions for Republicans for a generation. What's changed now is that Americans have this new and deeper understanding of what is possible. If abortion is overturned, what else could be next? And I think it has made it more real. And, IVF is one of those things. I think people have a hard time maybe imagining that birth control would really be on the chopping block. But, now you have to see those things differently than you did. And for those of us who grew up in a world that never knew anything but access to abortion care, that shock of Dobbs from 2 years ago, I think, really remains. And, as I say, the Biden administration needs to keep prosecuting this case and making clear that they have solutions. And I think that's what's got to happen next. It can't just be by blaming Trump. That's very real. Everyone understands that Trump is responsible. Now the question is, what do we do next? How do we bring back health care protections for women who desperately need it and who want it? And by the way, it's a winning issue across the country now. Red states, blue states, that's all thrown out the window now in terms of abortion politics. The entire playbook has been rewritten in the last 2 years.
Ladies, got to leave it there today, but thank you so much. Really important discussion, one that is obviously going to be brought up as we move forward in this campaign.